Hey everyone, and welcome to Already Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation Season 2, Episode 2. It's called Where Silence Has Lease. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. So, this one involves a big mystical mystery hole in space.
It's scientifically accurate, that.
Yes, and the Enterprise gets trapped outside it, and weird things happen, and I try to figure it out. There may or may not be some sort of godlike entity, making it a very traditional classic episode of Star Trek.
Yeah.
Before we get to any of that, though, at the start of the episode, like Picard comes out of his ready room, and he's kind of like hesitant. He almost like turns back and doesn't come out, and then he just decides to come. It's a really weird little scene.
And everyone's looking at him like something's wrong.
Yeah, and then they start talking to him about Riker, asking him if he's nervous. He's like, well, I think that there's parts of the Klingon, society that we should be ignorant to. It turns out Riker's in a training simulation with Worf. And I don't think it's any like surprise that this is just in the holodeck. Like, there's, no one's trying to trick us. It's just, we could be cut to them in like a forest or a jungle, and
yeah.
There's two alien dudes that are fighting. One's kind of a cheap-looking Ninja Turtle with spikes.
That's the description as any.
And then there's the other one that's got like a big yellow skull-like head, kind of thick and not very sleek-looking. And there's a bit of a fight. Worf gets kind of animalistic, and he kills both of them. And Riker has to tell him, like, hey, Lieutenant, snap out of it. And then he kind of snaps out of it, and he's like...
Yeah, but he's kind of turning on Riker a bit first.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's kind of like feral almost.
He's
like
caught up in the bloodlust.
Yeah. But he's like, Lieutenant, snap out of it. And he snaps out of it. And Riker says, do you do this like every day? And he's like, well, not this exactly. When I do it, it's more intense than this. But that's a personal experience. So this was the neutered version. Riker's like, yeah. So, there you go. And obviously, I think the thematic reason for this in this episode, outside of the fact that they're going to be together later on a little mission, is just that this is us trying to understand Klingons kind of the same way that throughout the episode, this entity's essentially trying to understand humans.
Yes, exactly.
So
a little bit clunky, though, isn't it?
It's a little bit clunky as a device goes, but. I enjoyed this episode well enough. I don't think it really ever reaches the heights that it could have, or maybe wants to.
I was really into about 2/3 of it.
Sure, because
like all the stuff, like while they're exploring the other ship, the mystery of what's going on, where exactly are they? I'm really into all that. Once the face appears, kind of lost me a bit.
I love the face. Nagilum? How do you pronounce it?
That sounds about right. But do you love it sincerely, or do you love it just because it's goofy as shit?
No. I love it because it looks like an effect that you would see. Like, this is what the AI, artificial intelligence, looks like on a video game with cutscenes on a PC from like 1994. That's what this looks like.
Yeah, pretty much.
It looks ridiculously bad in the most delightful way possible. And the animation's terrible. It's it's moving its mouth to talk, but like it's just up and
barely,
down. Yeah, it's just so that's entertaining to me. But yeah, so like they find this weird thing. They can't quite understand it. Data's like, nah, it has no like mass of any kind. It has no readings of any kind. And Picard's like, well, yeah, but it must have a height and a width. I mean, we can see it. He's like, well, technically, but not really. And I'm going to blame Wesley for a lot here, because they send in a probe, right? Like, Worf's like, let's probe it. So they send in a probe, and the probe actually gets destroyed or whatever, and Wesley's like, well, given, the probe, I can actually tell you what the safety barrier is now, so I can take us in closer if you want. And he's like, make it so. And I'm like, yeah. And of course, after he does that, they end up getting enveloped in it.
Here's the thing. I can't believe I'm going to defend Wesley here. I think he's right. I think where he leaves it was the safety barrier. I think the empty space, the entity actually moves to envelop them.
Oh, it does. It definitely does. I he's not wrong, but here's the thing: if it can move to get them, then having a further head start away from it is a good idea, right?
What? Yeah, but they don't even realize it's moved to get them until they're already inside it.
That's true. That's true. Worf at one point around here also brings up a whole Klingon like folktale about a big monster in space that envelops
That
things.
devours, I
Yeah.
believe was the word.
So he a little bit of Klingon like so the Klingons have heard about this thing, but they don't really know what it is. So half of the time in this thing is basically spent of them realizing because at first they're just in it and they're like, okay, we're here, we might as well send out some probes and like get some data. And sure enough, they're gathering some stuff and there's some debates about what this place is. Is it another dimension? Is the lack of dimension another dimension? That kind of thing. There's a weird moment where Pulaski, for some reason, is really like racist towards Data. Keeps referring to him as it.
Yeah.
She's like,
She's having a real problem with this whole android thing, isn't she?
yeah, she's like, it won't do what it's supposed to do. And Picard's like, Lieutenant Data is very capable of his
knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Really has to hammer it in.
Because it's like Picard's telling him to magnify it by 10, by 100, yada yada yada, and he's like, "Oh, plus, you stand and watch." But she takes that to mean she has to keep telling Data the next increment up, and and it's that idea that he knew to do that. He'd been doing it on his own.
Yeah. And she has to admit that in his records in Starfleet, he is acknowledged as being a living being. Like, he's alive.
Yeah.
As much as it's impossible for her to get her head around that idea. Oh dear. So they're in there and they try to move, and it's almost very Blair Witch. I can't believe I'm making a reference to Blair Witch in an episode of Star Trek, but in the way that they keep moving in one direction and they don't feel like they're getting anywhere, even though technically their computer and their engine and everything's saying, no, we've moved. So they launch a stationary probe with a beacon to sort of like so they can map how far they've moved, and they end up like coming back to it, even though they're going in a straight
I actually
line.
like the effect this way. You can hear it in the sound mix getting further away to your left. And then all of a sudden you just hear it in the right, and it's like, oh, they're approaching it again.
Yeah, really well done. I think in the 5.1 mix it was more back to front than it was left to right.
I get that. I think
depending on the camera angle, I suppose, but
yeah, because I think rule of thumb, we typically see the ship traverse left to right.
When we're seeing traverse, but there's a lot of shots on the bridge just looking like at the crew and the captain from the front.
There is, yeah.
So in the 5.1 mix, it was like you hear it going off out of the distance behind them, and then you start hearing it come in behind you again, as if they're coming up to it. So really neat little trick there. And it's the sort of thing I imagine that, like the original broadcast might have been stereo, but even if it was, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it wasn't mixed as stereo would be now.
Probably not.
For broadcast TV, I don't think so. Like, if we're talking about like a big movie in stereo at the time, sure.
Yeah.
But not broadcast TV.
And the 5.1, definitely not.
Oh, obviously, yeah, that's a new creation from the remasters. Very good, though. Solid 5.1
Oh, absolutely.
So, and then after this, so they're like, okay, we're trapped in here, be stationary again. And then it's like, wait, we're getting readings as a ship. And a Romulan ship appears. And it's like, okay, everyone, red alert, they get hit by a rocket or whatever, torpedo, and they fire a torpedo back, and it instantly blows up the Romulan ship.
I was like, that was a bit easy.
And it was the funny thing, there was something off about it, even just the second it showed up, I went, that's not real. Like,
yeah.
I just got that feeling, it didn't feel right. And then almost immediately after they've dealt with the Romulan ship, another starship appears, and it's the Yamato, I think, something like that.
Yeah, it's the sister ship.
Yeah.
So it looks exactly like the Enterprise from the outside.
Which means we can use the sets of the Enterprise for when they're wandering around the other ship. That's what that means.
Yeah.
So they're like, there's no life signs on board, but everything seems to be functioning correctly. So Riker's like, okay, let's go across. So Riker and Worf go across, and they think they're beaming to, I think it was the aft of the bridge.
The bridge, yeah.
And it turns out that they end up in different places. And they take a bit of time to find each other, but they both hear each other like yell or scream. And then when they find each other, they're like, wait, I wasn't screaming. Well, yeah, I heard you. No, I heard you. And so it's kind of this weird mirror like confusion going on, and
Yeah.
then it gets really trippy when they start like going through the bridge, and then when they go like they open a door on the bridge and walk into the bridge again, and they even at one point see themselves going through another door.
Yeah, you have a Worf kind of halfway in the doorway, looking back and forth between.
Yeah.
No, I love this bit. This bit of the episode was kind of great.
This was fun. It was especially because Worf was getting really angry because he didn't like how confusing it was.
Yeah, yeah. You had Riker go tell him stand down, Lieutenant.
Yeah.
Again.
So I mean that was kind of neat. And then they eventually can get because they can't communicate with them at this point. And they can't lock on to them, but eventually whatever's doing this lets them lock on, and they beam back to the Enterprise. And they're really confused. They have no idea what's going on. They're more confused than ever. And then I think it's around this point where eventually the face appears on the screen.
I think first before that they have the whack-a-mole game with the escape. They can see the exit point.
Oh, sure, you're right. That because it first appears while the other two are on the because they don't go because they'd leave Riker and Worf behind, which it almost feels like part of the test. Like, would they leave those two behind to get out?
Yeah,
and they don't.
So they can see the stars. It's like, oh, that's where we can travel in that direction.
There's an opening, yeah. But it keeps closing, so they keep thinking they're about to get out, and then it closes again, and blah blah, blah, and it opens up somewhere else. So yeah, that's going on, and it's funny because while they were on the other ship, Wesley's not on the bridge anymore. He's been replaced with this other dude, this red shirt, and I recognized. I recognized this guy immediately because there's a GIF from this episode. Now I didn't know it was going to be in this episode. I thought, oh, maybe he's going to be around for a while before this GIF happens.
Shouldn't have known better. It's a red shirt.
Yeah, but he shows up, and there's a famous GIF of him with his hands coming up to his head as his head's shaking, as if he's having like a seizure or something like that.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it happens in this because the big face and the horrible 90s CG, and it's not even the 90s yet. I'm saying 90s CG because it reminds me of 90s like FMV games.
Yeah.
But this comes up on the screen, and he's like, because they're theorizing before this, Pulaski's like, if I didn't know any better, I'd see we're rats in a maze. Like someone's testing us. Something is testing how we react to certain things. And this face comes up, and he wants to like test humans and how they handle death or how death works, and it'll maybe take a third to maybe 50% tops of your crew because he kills this guy. That's this guy in the bridge, this red shirt. He just makes him die.
Yeah, and so I want to see different kinds of death and how it affects them.
Yeah, because now I actually thought this was the GIF where a lot of the version of it has him seeing a blue screen, like a Windows blue screen. Now, I believe that I'm sure I've seen that with this GIF, although the more common one is the one where Data gets angry and like smacks his fist on the screen. But I am sure I've seen this one with a shaking head.
You probably have.
With a blue screen. I couldn't find it though. I could find the GIF itself of his head shaking because I guess it's very popular to use as a reaction shot. But that was that. I can't see the timer for the recording. I give up shit.
You're fine. It's still going.
I'll be able to see it. So here's where the episode gets a little bit wonky for me. I don't even mind the digital head. Where the episode gets wonky for me is like, so they're being tested. They're discussing. Worf thinks that 30 to 50% is acceptable casualties in a fight, and like they're like, Worf, we're not really in a fight. Like we shouldn't be accepting. We're not in a war or anything like that.
But Picard's like, screw this. He's getting none of us.
Yeah, Picard just jumps to, well, we'll blow up the ship then, so he can't take any of us. And
Riker's on board with him.
Riker's on board with it, and at the end, one of them says, "Oh, like he'll really," I guess maybe Wesley, he'll really let that bluff go to the last possible second. And someone says, "But was he bluffing?" And I'm kind of this mind where I'm like, he had to have been. If he wasn't bluffing, then Picard's a madman.
I think he's a madman. I don't think it was a bluff. I think he never gave any indication it was a bluff.
Like, here's the thing.
He genuinely was like, nah, screw this thing. If he wants to experiment on all of us, I'm just killing us all.
Here's the problem, though. I don't think there's enough to build up to him making that choice. Like, I'll accept that if things get dire enough, he's willing to kill the entire ship so that they don't get taken by whatever this is, or to make some sort of point. But I don't think there's enough in the episode to justify him making this extreme choice.
I'm not defending. When I said earlier was when the head showed up was kind of where the episode lost me. It wasn't just because of the head. I just mean this whole everything after this point is considerably weaker than.
It felt so weird that he got to this point. Because when the fake Data, because Troy and Data came in to kind of argue two different sides of like what they should do, and Data calls him Jean-Luc, and it's like one of the tells that something's not quite right here. And they're like, No, you should do this, you shouldn't do that. Picard calls him out. It's like, hey, nice try. Like, computer, where's Data? He's on the bridge. All right, I know it's you. I know it's you, bad guy.
Yeah, piss off.
And whatever, like, and after this, like, they're outside the thing. Like, all of a sudden, it's just stars outside. Like, the thing's disappeared. And I think Picard was right to assume it might still be an illusion because he's clearly.
I was thinking that as well.
Yeah, because he's clearly been shown that that's the case. So I like his skepticism of thinking they're actually free of it.
He really does leave it to the last second to defuse the auto self-destruct.
Yeah, which Riker takes like 30 seconds to say yes, that he agrees that to confirm to cancel it.
Yeah.
He's like,
and Picard's like, come on, could have just said yes.
Yeah. So I like that part of it. I like that he was skeptical at that point, but during the fake, characters and him like sussing this out, like I was thinking, okay, this is a bluff. He did this to kind of like play, basically force the entity to like play and like do something to react to it. But at the same time, it's like he legitimately was going down to the wire on this, and he like even if it's a bluff, I still feel like it was an extreme step at that point. I don't think.
And that's the thing. It never indicates that it is a bluff. There's nothing on his behalf to indicate that he isn't fully sincere in this action.
But here's the thing: even if it is a bluff, let's just take it for granted that it's a bluff, right? He was never really wanting to plot the ship. Well, maybe once a stranger, because obviously he doesn't want to. But like even if it's a bluff, I still don't think the plot's at the point yet where he's ready to bluff that. Like,
no.
I feel like it would take him a few more deaths to really set him on edge. Like, no, we're facing something that we can't deal with.
I agree.
It feels too rushed. And after they've got out, they've turned the self-destruct off. He goes to his ready room, and what's his name again? Nagilum comes up on the screen to talk to him, and basically just like, oh, I've learned things about you, and I've learned that humans, you act too quickly with violence, and you're stubborn, and blah blah blah. And Picard's like, well, we've been recording stuff on you too, and if there's one thing we do have in common, that's curiosity, because you were curious about us, just like we were curious about you. And he's like, perhaps that's true. Maybe one day, when humans are ready, we'll meet again, kind of thing.
It's always the end of these episodes, isn't it?
Yeah, it felt especially rushed in this one though, because it felt like so slow paced in a good way for the first like 2/3.
It was methodical.
Yeah, and in the last third, it just kind of rushed through this idea of getting to like. I feel like if we're going to get to the point in an episode where Picard's willing to kill the entire ship instead of like the bad guy winning, I feel like the entire episode has to build to that.
I agree. Yeah.
And him losing his shit over the course of the episode, but it didn't do that. So.
The first 2/3 was like, oh, this is on par to be up there with the best episodes of season 1.
Yeah.
Like comfortably, like I had the right tone. It was just weird enough, when they were going through all the same bridge over and over and debating whether or not is it the same bridge or are they going through into a copy of the bridge. Like I thought that was all great, like really good stuff.
Yeah, and even without the face, I think the disappointment part of it being like a godlike figure just testing humans is that that stuff going through the bridge was so interesting that it's actually disappointing that the answer is just it's just a godlike being testing. Like there's no like reason for that specific, the actual like looping element of it didn't have a reason. It was just what he was doing to mess with them.
Yeah, whereas let's say it was it wasn't a conscious entity, right? But let's say this void.
Yeah, it was
still doing it, right?
Yeah, it was the scientific properties of the void. Yeah,
rather than that. It was more like it didn't have enough information. It didn't to replicate everything, so it just reused the same room over and over.
Yeah, something like that. Or even if it was like a godlike entity whose computer couldn't do it, or something like that. To add like a caveat to it, that made it a bit more
just
interesting.
Something. Because it was a really interesting concept when they were walking around it and trying to figure it out,
but it ultimately has very little meaning.
It doesn't. No.
Unless you talk about because at the end, like the bad guy's like, oh well, humans, they're quick to rush to judgment, but they're slow to change. You could argue that the idea of them going in circles in the ship is like a sort of representation of like if they'd thought about it unlike humans, they might have like had a solution, but because they just kept running through, it was almost like they were repeating.
Keep going through the same door over and over. Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah. It's not great, but it's the one thing.
I feel like we're reaching a little bit there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a terrible episode. It is. It's like a solid 6.5.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Kind of
I
thing.
think it's more frustrating because it had so much potential
Yeah.
for the first 2/3.
I liked it more in the last episode. So,
Oh, well, yeah,
that's
it was a
that.
pretty low bar going in, though.
And we also have what do we call it? At the end, little joke scene. Like Picard literally comes out of his ready room after this conversation, and as he's sitting down, he's like, "Okay, resume or what our course was before all this started." And Riker says to Wesley, "And if you see any holes, just avoid them at all costs." And they have a chuckle.
Yeah,
and that's the end of the episode. So
it's not quite banter, but humor.
It just ends abruptly, and like
Yeah.
the main plot, the way the characters end at the end of the episode, all of it just ends a bit abruptly, and it just feels a bit off.
I can't argue with that.
Feels a bit off.
A shame.
So I guess we'll see what's coming next time.
Yeah. Hopefully something interesting.
So it's called Elementary, My Dear Data. Oh, sorry,
I'm excited.
Sorry, Elementary, Dear Data. There's no my in there. I added that in just naturally because
yes,
yeah,
excited already.
Yeah, an attempt to provide data with a challenging Sherlock Holmes holodeck RPG scenario backfires when its Professor Moriarty character accidentally becomes self-aware.
Oh, I know. There are people screaming, "Oh, it's just another holodeck gone rogue episode." But I love the sound of this.
Joe, it's funny to me about this description. This was obviously written by someone years later because I don't believe for a second that someone in 1987 or whatever it was wrote the phrase RPG into the description.
Probably not.
Highly unlikely.
It's unlikely, but D&D's at a big height in the 80s.
Yeah, but a holodeck's more like a video game, though, right? Than it is D&D.
Depends how they treat it in the episode. Because it's data going in and role playing as Sherlock Holmes, right? By that description.
I suppose, but these are user submitted, I'm sure. So I've got a feeling this was someone in like 2010 writing this, and
probably more likely, yeah.
So yeah, that's Elementary Dear Data. That's next week's episode. So obviously, let us know what you thought of this one in the comments. If you want to support everything we do at MailFuzz TV, especially the Star Trek discussions, go to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, where you can support us for as little as $1 per month. And for that $1, you get these Star Trek reviews a week early. You get bonus episodes of some of our other shows, as well as other episodes of other things early. And obviously, there's more to get, the $5 and up tiers. So go have a look see, and you can also support us by liking and subscribing. You can support us by giving the audio version of the podcast a review and 5 stars on the podcast app, Apple Podcasts or whatever it is. You can, of course, get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. You get me on Twitter at Wibble89. You can get Connor on Twitter at ConnorRyan94, should you wish individual Twitters. We don't say them enough for the audio listeners. I mean, they're on the screen for the video folk, but we don't say it enough for the audio people.
It used to be a thing we said at the end of everything, but then it became a big mouthful, didn't it? With your big spiel at the end of it.
There's enough outro anyway. We can throw in the Twitters.
All the way back around now. That's big enough. Just balloon it.
But yeah, that is us. Obviously, check out other content we've got. We have classic Twilight Zone reviews going up every week as well. We have Firefly reviews going up right now, and of course we're expecting the new season of The Expanse coming soon. If you're into that, which you might be if you're into like sci-fi shows.
To be honest, by the time you see this, we might already have a date. / maybe already the show.
If they shadow drop it, but that has been us. Thank you very much once again for watching and listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek, guys, and to everyone but Connor, live long and prosper.